All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining our Davis Electric Vehicle Association meeting. This is the first time we're doing this. Obviously, there's a lot of things happening with the coronavirus. So we're glad that we're able to still share information with you while you are in the safety of your own home. Just a quick note, if you're able to introduce yourself on the chat box, go ahead and share your name, vehicle, the number of years you've been driving, or if you're EV curious and have a question, you can share it there as well. I want to go over a quick, some quick housekeeping. Attendees are currently in listen only mode. When the panelists start, they will share their screen and share information with you. And then when it gets to the Q&A time, we are asking you to use the raise hand function or the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. When you raise your hand, I'll go ahead and unmute you, let you talk and ask your question. And then I'll put you back on mute so that the panelists can answer the question. And again, you can use the Q&A button as well if you want to type a question in there. If you have any problems during the webinar, feel free to use the chat function at the bottom as well, where you've been typing in your name and electric vehicle so that we can help you out and make sure we solve any problems you might have. And just so that you all know, this meeting is being recorded. Next up, Tim.
Hi, everybody. I guess this is just another welcome.
Tim, I'm really sorry, but it seems we can't hear you.
I unmuted my microphone. There's something else that I need to do?
I can hear Tim.
Oh, sorry, that must be me. Everybody else can hear him. My sound is off.
Another welcome to this first ever remote meeting in these times. I don't really have a screen to share. I can just start going through the agenda. We're not going to do the go around the room, and that's going to happen in the chat room. But if there's anybody that has any hot topics, I think there are a couple that had been raised beforehand via email. So if you could raise your hand in the chat room, then we can unmute you and you can do a hot topic. Does that sound right, Sandra?
Yes. Richard, I am unmuting you. Go ahead. I think you'll have to unmute yourself as well.
How about now?
Great, can hear you.
Great, okay. So this is Richard Bode, and I think one of the things I'd like to bring up under hot topics was something for this group to consider in the future, and that's used EVs. We have gotten a couple of comments from DEVA members asking about more information. And at the same time, internally, we've heard a lot about, how to get into EVs for a much lower price, sites that sell EVs, and then what DEVA can do. So I think we've talked, it might be a good idea to have this at a future meeting. We can put more time into presenting an item on it. But I'd suggest too, if you've got ideas of what part of used EVs you'd like to hear about, send a note in to us at the DEVA email address, and we can collect those and work on it for next time. That's all I got.
So Sandra, maybe I'm giving incorrect information to the attendees. I'm not sure how they raise their hand. Would they just enter a question in the chat room and then you'd connect them and unmute them?
Yes, I've been seeing them raise their hands and then I unmute them and they unmute themselves and they can talk. So
Okay.
we've got Jim here next. Jim, I've unmuted you. You're gonna have to unmute yourself as well.
I think I'm unmuted. Am
We're
I?
good? Yes.
We're good. Hey, nice to see all you guys. Let me know how many members are in attendance right now. Is there any way to know?
We have 35 people that are on the webinar currently.
Really? That is awesome. I was just wondering if that shows up anywhere in the interface.
Yep, I can see it.
It
Oh.
shows up for the panelists, Jim,
Uh-huh.
and we're up to 36.
That's awesome. Congratulations, you guys. Quick question for Hot Topics is I've been gathering some information on vehicle to grid. And I was just wondering if the members might like to have a presentation about that at our next meeting. So that's my question.
Well, I think people can weigh in the chat room, you know, that is obviously something that the state government and other stakeholders have been working, utilities have been working on for some time. So I think it's a useful topic.
I finally found some hardware that allows you to do that, and took some searching, but it's out there.
Great.
Yeah.
Next, we have Guy Hall. I have unmuted you. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Sandra. Just a follow-up question on that to what Jim had there in terms of number of members. Is there any way to maybe people can indicate this in the chat room? But I'd be curious to see if anybody is joining this from that normally just goes to the SAC EV meetings. Are we getting some crossover from that group as well and into this? So if you are normally just attending the Sacramento portion of the meetings, drop a note in the chat room and let us know. Thank you.
Great. Next, we have Lane White. You can now unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah, sorry, I hit the raise your hand button before he said chat room. I belong to the SAC EV group. Just wanted to let you know there. I usually attend their meetings.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining ours.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I was there, I think, last month or maybe a month before that in person. So glad to be here.
Welcome.
All right. I'm not seeing any other hands raised right now. Tim, do you want to mention the other item here on the hot topic?
The three items that I see are, or two items, I guess, is how can we, well, we've already done that one. How do we preserve the battery life of our EVs when not driving much due to COVID? Heather Hull is asking that question. That's a good question. I don't know that leaving your car sit has an effect on battery life. That would be new to me, but maybe it does. And the people that are more aware of that and technical can weigh in.
Peter, I am allowing you to talk. You can unmute yourself.
Alrighty. So I don't know if my camera's on. I don't think it is, but anyway, I guess it's not. As far as battery life goes, the thing that kills battery life is heat and charge cycles. So if it's just sitting and you're not using it, it's probably not gonna. I mean, you just got to make sure that it stays charged up, but it shouldn't affect your battery life. Matter of fact, you should get more battery life because you're not driving the car.
Fantastic. I see Jim raised his hand as well. Go ahead, Jim.
Earlier, for example, earlier Teslas, if they sat for longer than 6 months or a year, would turn into what they called bricks, and the batteries would fail and they would become unrecoverable. I don't know if the modern batteries have that problem or not, but if you're Going to drive it every couple of months. That should be plenty, you know, to keep it, keep that from happening. That's my opinion.
Great. And then Guy, I see you raise your hand as well. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Again, back to that same topic. It's best to avoid having the battery stay full all the time. So if you leave it charged in and it's full for several weeks at a time, that's generally not really good for it. Best to kind of let it, if you can keep it in the say 20 to 80% range. And so just charge it up a bit every week or two if you're not driving it. But don't leave it plugged in at the full charge point. And of course, avoid, just monitor it to make sure you don't ever go down to empty. But that would take quite a long time of sitting around to get to empty.
Great. And Peter?
Yeah, this is Peter again. Yeah, so no, I mean, I basically guys just said what I was going to say, but you know, with my car, I don't leave it plugged in. I charge it up and then I unplug it and let the battery slowly run down because there's a lot of peripheral parasitic losses in my car. It drains the battery, and then when it gets down to about 50 miles of range or whatever, then I plug it back in, charge it back up again. So, and another thing I was going to say that might be useful. I mean, you're not doing anything useful, but if you really want to, just take the car and go for a drive it for an hour or two, come back. You know, just circle around and don't leave your car. You're not going to get infected, and I mean, maybe it's a violation technically of the stay home order, but you're not going to be spreading any disease, and you'll keep the car, you know, it'll get a little miles on it, so it won't fall apart.
Great. And Paul, I see you raise your hand as well. Paul Imhoff, I just unmuted you.
Thank you. Hey, so I wanted to find out from Peter what kind of car he had, as he was mentioning about it. That was the only question I had.
Peter, you're actually still good to talk.
I'm still good. Okay, yeah. It's a Tesla Model S. It's in 2013. It's an old one, and it was funny because the last time I drove the car, I kept it. I didn't charge it for about a week and a half, and I was putting little short trips on it, basically going to the coffee shop every day. And so, you know, I usually get like 3 miles per kilowatt hour. And the last time when I just charged it up, and I had driven on a 250 mile range battery pack, I had driven only 60 miles, and it was down to 50. So it basically 2/3 of the energy that was in that battery pack got sucked out from parasitic losses, like running the coolant around, keeping the battery up to temperature and other things, and didn't go into driving the car. So and other vehicles may not be that bad, but mine likes to use a lot of power when it's sitting.
And Guy?
Yeah, so to add to that, it's not just the battery you have to be concerned about. You know, from personal experience, that if you don't take that vehicle out every so often and just move it around, you'll find yourself end up having to replace the tires. If they just sit in one spot on the tire, they develop a flat spot. And I had to buy a new set of tires once because I let it sit there for that was 2 months, I think. And so take it around the block in spite of the you know, shelter in place.
Great. Any others? Any other comments or hot topics? Jorge, I am allowing you to talk. Go ahead. I think you'll have to unmute yourself as well.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago, I took my car in with maybe about 80 miles of charge because I had been getting a pulsating amber light or yellow light, and the Tesla company there in Rockland replaced the battery, and I saved like $21,000. It was still under warranty, even though it's a 2013 Model S. So I was glad to still be under warranty. And last summer, I had the car basically sitting idle in the garage as we were out of the country for 2 months. So
For both of our cars.
both of our cars, although my wife's Model 3 is only a year and a half old, so her battery was probably
Just
in
the-
better shape
Yeah.
than mine. But just a heads up, hopefully if people still have warranty, maybe they should check with Tesla and have them given check of the battery just to make sure it's not on its near deathbed.
Good tip. Thank you.
Good.
Anybody else? Okay, then we will move on to our next item. Katrina will be presenting from the UC Davis Institute of Transportation Studies on the cars on the market in 2020 and 2021. Katrina?
Hey guys, welcome to our digital meeting. I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, okay. I can't share my screen because Sandra is powerful. But in theory, I will be sharing my screen in a hot sec so you can see my lovely PowerPoint I have made for you guys. And you can ignore all the other tabs I have on my computer because there are many. And I will remember how to present. Yeah, okay. So hey guys, a little bit of background about me. I am a second-year master's student at UC Davis. I'm majoring in transportation technology and policy, so this is right up my alley. My area of study is looking at, or my research has been looking at increasing charging station utilization with changing human behavior with charging management strategies and focusing mostly on the workplace. But I love all aspects of electric vehicles, and so I'm happy to do a little bit of research to tell you guys about new electric vehicles coming in the next soon time. I have a Volt, so I have one of the first Chevy Volts, so I've been driving electric cars forever. I'm also on the steering committee for DEVA and for PHEVs, so it's fun to see what's going on. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. So let's get going. And I will tell you, my internet's been a little bit weird lately, and my computer did shut down about 45 minutes ago because it was overheating. So hopefully it's gotten through its hissy fit and we'll be okay. If not, I don't mean to just leave. It's just my computer being sad. I wanted to start this off about talking a little bit about what VELOs, which is a I don't know what they are, but they're research and outreach kind of people in the state who have been collecting data about the electric vehicles that are out there right now. And so just so you guys are aware, this is data from up to 2019, so it's just a few months old, so it's hot off the press. And so you can see that there's about 700,000 electric vehicle sales. So, good job, guys. That's on us. But there is also there's a lot of charging, and nationally we take up most of the sales because California is just really awesome. And just a little bit more locally, Yolo County has about 1,000 PHEVs registered in the county, is what I heard. So just so we're all on the same page, so plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, PHEVs, have both a gasoline and an electric engine. And so you can charge them just like an all-electric vehicle wherever there's an outlet. And it is, that's what I have. So my Volt is a gas and electric vehicle. I actually don't use the gas that frequently because my hypothetical commute was from West Sac to campus to UC Davis. And since I can charge on both ends, I really didn't need to use the gasoline. But one, it's a hand-me-down vehicle, and two, if I wanted to visit my family in either Reno or Santa Cruz, then I needed the gas engine. If I had an all-electric vehicle, I would need a longer range. So I would probably need a Bolt, which is hopefully going to be my next car, a Tesla, the Kia Niro can now get me there, the Hyundai Kona, and some other vehicles that I'll be talking about today all have enough range to get me to where I need to go. And so the range of vehicles is obviously, you know, dependent on what the manufacturer gives, but also you want to keep in mind that it just depends on what's good for your driving situation and for your charging situation as well. And so it's been recommended that your range should be about double the daily usage, you know, just in case you have a little bit of buffer. And I always recommend, it's super useful to get a DC fast charging port so you can charge on the go much quickly than just a normal outlet or a dryer outlet. Just a little bit of background. And just so this is just a little bit of acronym soup for you guys in case you wanted to know. So the way I refer to just electric vehicles as a whole, something with a plug, is a PEV, which is either a PHEV, so the plug-in hybrid, or a BEV, which is all electric with no gas. So I'm just getting right on into it. The Porsche Taycan is out right now, actually. If you were at the SAC EV meeting last month, Milo Auto Ship, Milo, I think they're in Rockland now, or they're in Sacramento, was able to bring out their Taycan. It was gorgeous. I got to touch it. It was very fun. Got to sit in it. And so they have two different battery packs options. So you can either go right below 200 miles or a smidge above 200 miles. But obviously there's like a price point with that. It can do 0 to 60 in 3.8. So it's much quicker than my car. And something to note is I think I was at the meeting in March. Yeah, we're in April. So I was at the meeting last month and we were trying to find their DC fast charging port. And we weren't able to kind of figure that sucker out. And so actually I figured out the answer to that question. So on the driver's side has just the normal level 1, level 2 outlet. So just when you would plug into the wall. Whereas the DC fast charging port with the CCS is actually on the front passenger side. And the reason we couldn't open that up is because the port on the right has to be closed, so the port on the left can open. So you can't have two different outlets or two different plugs being plugged in at the same time. And I assume this is for safety reasons and also just for sanity, because it doesn't make sense to have your vehicle plugged into both sides. It's just kind of silly. It doesn't really make that much sense. The Audi e-Tron, it's also been out for a while now. It's got a 200-ish mile range. It's fairly Audi standard, where it's got a 95 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is pretty big. Audi was bragging about how their vehicle was rated for more consistent fast charging. So I've heard that their range is actually underestimated based on what real world driving has actually seen. And what this vehicle I actually appreciate is that there's a lot of different drive modes that you can have on this car. And that's just like a side hobby of mine, is looking at the drive modes of vehicles. So you can have upwards of 5 or 6 different drive modes, meaning you can switch it into like an eco mode, a sport mode, more of like a off-road mode, or you can actually customize it. So you can go up and down on the suspension, which is really interesting and really cool. I don't deal with a lot of these higher end vehicles like on a personal level, so this might be fairly standard for people who do. But for me, it's very exciting stuff to learn about what these guys are doing. The Rivians. So I actually got to see the Rivian. That's my lovely face at the bottom. I went to one of their release events, I guess, in Mill Valley. So I got to touch it. It was very fun. It was very cool. And so I got to talk to their actual people and learn more about the vehicles. So they're coming out with a truck and a SUV. And based on different battery pack sizes, they obviously they come in different battery pack sizes, which relates to different ranges. And they also have a price point of about $70,000, which is just the base. They haven't had a lot of information released about their like 0 to 60 or their top price, like the fully loaded vehicle. And that's just because it's not fully announced yet. But they did actually talk about V to V potential, excuse me. So in theory, you can charge a Rivian vehicle from a different Rivian vehicle, which is really cool and like kind of funny. So I appreciate the like thought put into that. And kind of the reason I assume they did that is because they their vehicles are really meant for off-roading. When they on their website they do tout that they can make it to Yosemite and back from San Francisco, which is kind of a big deal. So they really want the vehicle to be outdoorsy. They have a lot of different options and such like that. But actually, it just came out today. They were talking about it's actually delayed until 2021 due to the corona. So if you didn't know that, like literally it just came out today, so you're not behind in the times. I am just ahead of the times. So it's just, that's kind of unfortunate, but I mean, it makes sense with the way things are. I mean, I'm presenting right now from my house. You guys are all chilling at home as well. And so it's good that they're taking a look ahead and trying to give everybody a reasonable timeline for their vehicles. The Mustang Mach-E. So this is a Ford vehicle, obviously because of the Mustang logo. It's also supposed to be coming out at the end of the year. Actually, Rivian is the only one I found who has reported any sort of delays or response to the virus in terms of expected release. It could just be I haven't done enough research, but if you guys have seen any other vehicles, feel free to let me know. I'm really excited about this car. I think it was pretty interesting that Ford released the Mustang as a Mustang, because that's, you know, traditionally a muscle car, traditionally loud and obnoxious and annoying when they go down the street revving their engines at 2 in the morning, because I've never experienced that before. It's annoying. I do not like it. But it's really interesting that this is their first SUV under the Mustang logo, as well as their first I would say like electric vehicle built from the ground up. Ford has been fairly behind in the times with regards to creating electric vehicles that are well thought out, I guess, to say kind of nicely. The other vehicles they have are the C-Max and the Fusion, and they did have a Ford Focus all electric. But those were just taking the original body style of the gasoline engine and just shoving the batteries and the electric motor in where they would fit. Whereas this vehicle is designed to be an electric vehicle, so everything is placed nicely and it's been designed that way. But there's still not like a lot of information out. I did actually find what I thought was interesting is, of course, all vehicles have different levels of tiers of fanciness. And the basic Mustang is actually only DC fast charging up to 115 kilowatts. But the rest of the models actually go up to 150 kilowatts, which I thought was kind of an interesting way to segregate the different models of Mustang or of this car. So I'm curious to see if people will have an opinion about that, or if it's just me being a little bit nerdy about charging speeds, which I will admit I'm very nerdy about this topic. So, you know, who knows? Moving right along, the Model Y, you guys have all heard of it. It is what it is. Tesla is the most name brand electric vehicle. There are out. I haven't seen any in the wild. I have not left the house very often, and nobody else is leaving the house, so it makes sense. I am looking for them. I really want to see one. They kind of, to me, just look like a big Model 3, which is, you know, what they've been designed to be. But I'm not sure if I'll be able to distinguish them on the road simply because I haven't seen them very frequently. So, you know, we'll see. Tesla stockpiled a bunch of them before this corona trickery happened. So in theory, they're still rolling out. But if somebody else knows better, feel free. We can talk after this, and we can, you know, get the most information out about the cars, because that's what matters to me, is that we all have updated and correct and accurate information about these cars that are just coming out or will be coming out very soon. The Mini Cooper E, that one, Sandra and I just actually talked about this one end of last week, because I actually didn't know that much about it. And the reason I don't know that much about it is it kind of like, sorry Mini Cooper, sorry BMW, but it looks kind of like a compliance car, which in this day and age, like, really, like, come on guys. It only, I guess I should say only with, you know, air quotes or an asterisk, because 32 kilowatt hour battery pack for 110 miles. I mean, that's just barely like a feasible car. I mean, like 150 minimum is kind of the new standard. And so it's a little bit disappointing to see that they haven't spent, it doesn't appear that they spent that much time on it. The article I was reading says that it really just feels like a normal car. And so if that's what you're looking for, if you love the Mini like style, then, you know, more power to you. But compared to the rest of the cars, I mean, it's got such a much smaller range, but also it is a lot less expensive than some of the other cars I was showing. And actually, I did write currently available question mark because all of the literature, I guess, I was reading was saying that it was supposed to be out in March, but it's not out. We're in April now, so, you know, a little bit behind is fine. But I was on their website and it still says pre-order and it still says, you know, coming soon without any of the like final specifications released. So that was pretty interesting to learn. The Mini brand did used to have a Mini Cooper plug-in or all-electric vehicle that was back in the day, not like the early 2010s, I guess is how you say it properly. So they did have, maybe it was late 2000s, they did have a Mini that came out and then they took it back. And so it's very interesting to see what they are trying to do now. The Mini Cooper, they do have a Mini Cooper PHEV, which is the Countryman, but I've actually heard terrible things about that one. So again, sorry Mini Cooper, but that's just what I found and a little bit of my opinion splashed in, because what doesn't make a presentation fun, but you know, the person who's talking to you's opinion. The Polestar 2. This is a interesting vehicle. I follow them on Instagram and they like to post a bunch of pictures about their car, but not a lot of facts, which is kind of what Instagram is for, so that's fine. This is a new brand, so nobody's ever heard of it. So if you haven't, that's fine. It's Volvo backed, so it's supposed to be just Volvo's like line of all electric vehicles. So if you're concerned about getting into a brand that's brand new, if you trust Volvo, then you should be able to trust these guys. They're supposed to be releasing in a few months because it says July, but again, we'll see what's happening. I did hear they were starting production, but again, who knows if they've had to halt it or repurpose the factories or what have you. It does have it looks like it does have a pretty efficient drivetrain, I guess is the right word to say, because it is a 78 kilowatt hour battery pack with a range of about 275. But a thing you do want to be careful about, and I don't think I made a note of this anywhere, but I should have, so I apologize, is the how they tested the range of the vehicle. So if it's running the EPA drive cycle or if it's running the European standard, which I think is the NEPA standard. Don't quote me on that. It has a different acronym, NECA. There's a different acronym. And that one has been a lot more, I guess, generous with their range. And also, those drive cycles are just drive cycles. I mean, the real world experience with these cars are all totally different. I've heard stories about people pushing their range or getting no range. You guys who have electric cars obviously know this, and I love collecting.
Does it seem like we just lost Katrina?
Oh no.
Are you
No,
back?
I'm here.
You're back.
I'm here. I swear I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. Hello. Sorry. I think I warned you guys. We're good. I warned you that my internet was being a little bit sad. I did warn you. Okay. We're good. We're good. Hopefully we're good. Otherwise, I'm just talking to my screen, which is good practice for presentations, but not
We're good, Katrina.
necessarily
You're back.
correct.
We're good.
Okay, sorry. I'll just keep ranting until I know whatever's happening. Anyway, sorry. I should be continuing on. So we have the Mercedes EQC expected out next year. 80 kilowatt hour battery pack with a pretty big range. I don't actually know that much about this car. There wasn't a lot online. The critique I will have of it is that my pet peeve is the charge port is in the back, which I personally don't like. All the Teslas are in the back, so obviously you get used to it. But when you're just pulling up to a random charging station in public or in a workplace, generally the ports are in the front. So I have seen people or watched some very interesting pictures of people having to back their car in or parking it at a weird angle to get the cord to reach. But again, that's just a pet peeve of mine, and I'm sure people have had plenty of positive experiences, or there are other benefits of this car than my little rant about charge port location. Next, I'm going to talk about Volkswagen. Volkswagen's vehicles have been a little bit hard to figure out, in my opinion. It could just me and be my poor Googling skills, I will admit that. But it has been a little bit tough. So they have a new car coming out called the ID4. It's also been cross-named as the ID Cross, which is just difficult for me to kind of conceptualize in the articles I've read to conceptualize. It's relatively large. It is Taycan size, so that's their other large vehicle. But it does tout a very large 300+ mile range with just an 83 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which is impressive. And they've also been talking about the ID Buzz, which is just a revamp of the Volkswagen Bug, which is not Bug, of the Volkswagen, you know what I'm saying, the big bus, which is really cool to see come out. And I've seen a lot of interesting pictures of that vehicle. So we will, see what happens with that. Not finally, but we're getting close to the end. Sorry, thanks for sticking with me. The Byton is supposed to be coming out late 2020 as well. It's got this huge screen. It's like 41 inches, I think is what their website said. And it's supposed to be all very like hands-free, but very like you can do a bunch of motion sensors with it, I guess, which is crazy. And they also are saying a pretty big range. But again, we don't know. Sorry, my cat might be joining us. Sir, please. But we don't know. We don't know so much of the price points, and we also don't know when it's going to be coming stateside. So hopefully it will be coming, but it is a Chinese company, so I assume they'll be releasing it over there before coming here. Lucid Air. They have. I'm curious to see how these guys are doing it. They have they have 3 different battery pack capacities with ranges of up to 400 miles. They also just released a video that I thought was really cute, because again, this is what I love, that they drove from San Francisco down to LA in one charge, and they actually took Highway 1, which was really cool. And they also had a little bit of video that they actually had to stop because the following car, the chase car, was had to stop and refuel, which I thought was just like a cute, funny little anecdote, but it really highlighted the fact that this car made it all the way down. And I mean, it was a trooper, like even as a test car. So that was really fun to see. I have some notable mentions here, and that's because I didn't talk a lot about trucks, because I just didn't talk about trucks. It was my decision. This is my PowerPoint. You guys have to deal with that decision. So obviously we have the Cybertruck, which is a very polarizing car, depending on if you like its body style or not. We have the Hummer EV, which I'm actually very excited about, because I didn't like the Hummer. It's big and ugly, but I am curious to see what they do with the electric version of it. There's when it's such a big car, obviously there's a lot of room to put batteries down there, so you can get a really long range. So we have the Cybertruck, the Hummer. We also have Lordstown Motors, who is new in the field, and so they're based in Ohio. So I appreciate that that they're there, and so we will see what they come out with. There's also this Nikola Badger vehicle, which I had never heard of before, but it is interesting that it's a hybrid vehicle, but the hybrid is hydrogen and battery electric. And that's supposed to come out in September. So we will see what happens with that. Who knows with the way things are right now, but I'm hopeful. Gotta stay positive, right? And just some other vehicles that were fun that I wanted to highlight is the Nissan Ariya. I'm fairly certain is how you pronounce it. That was announced at CES in Vegas last time. And it's Nissan's other electric vehicle that they're advertising. They've really only talked about the Leaf. If you notice, Nissan only has the Leaf. And so this is an SUV Rogue style car that's, you know, a bigger SUV crossover type of car, because that's where the market is going and that's what people want. And then there's also the Canoe that was announced, and this is supposed to be like a mobile like van kind of lifestyle that you're supposed to be able to like rent and like crowd share with. And it's kind of an interesting concept. I will be curious to hear more about it when they get closer to release, but these are other cars to keep an eye on. And just in case you were tired of hearing me talk and you couldn't take notes or what have you, I did make a little bit of a spreadsheet to talk about the vehicles that I talked about, along with their body type, range, some price, battery pack, 0 to 60. What else do I have here? Charging speed. And I think that's the last column I can't see. Oh, and availability, of course. Because these are the interesting factors that I thought. I do want you to note that, again, these are, you know, most of these cars aren't out yet, so the details are still subject to change. But I know I want to see, especially comparing the max charging speed with the price, I think are pretty interesting. And I just want to say one more thing. So this did get pushed back. This presentation was supposed to be in February, and so I had this really cute articles for February for Valentine's Day, but I thought it was very fun, so I kept it in. And it basically says, if you have an electric vehicle, you're more likely to like find love, and I thought that was really cute. And so I'm sharing that with all of you guys, and that's what I have. So thanks, guys. I will still be here, obviously. Hopefully I didn't bore you to death. Yeah. I think I can stop sharing. I'm not sure the next step here.
That was great, Katrina.
So, yes, and if anybody wants to say hello, I am here.
Do we have any questions for Katrina? Sandra, are we monitoring that?
No, you're just speechless. I understand. It's a lot.
Yes, sorry. Looking at the chat here, does anybody have a comment about the upcoming RAV4 Prime?
Ooh, that's a good one I did not put in. If that was a question to me, I can talk about that.
If you know
for
about
other
it,
people.
sure.
I can do a frantic Google search right here. But what I do know about it is that I can talk about Toyota, and they actually haven't been very perceptive or receptive, I guess, to all electric vehicles. So I think the Prime, isn't the RAV4 Prime a PHEV? Because I didn't look at PHEVs. RAV4 Prime, because it's the Prius Prime logo. To me indicates that the RAV4 would be a PHEV. Yeah, so that's why. So I didn't talk about it because it is a PHEV. Yeah, so it is a PHEV. It does come in all-wheel drive, which is good for that's the new thing right now. But yeah, so I didn't talk about it because I was only looking at all electrics and I wasn't looking at gas plug-in hybrids. But I'm curious to see. Toyota doesn't like all electric vehicles. They haven't really made any. Not like is a strong word, but they haven't really been supporting the all electric vehicle market. They had their Prius market fairly cornered, the hybrid market. So they kind of have been happy with their little niche there, and they haven't been wanting to expand. And so it's interesting to see what they will be doing with the larger vehicle as a PHEV. So, and apparently it's coming out, according to Guy, coming out this summer. So who knows if they have that coming out or if they're going to push it. It will be very interesting to know.
And do you know the ID4 Cross, was that just going to Europe, or is it also still coming to the US?
Yeah, so the ID Cross, okay, so this is again, like Volkswagen has been like very confusing with their names. So there is the ID Buzz, the ID4, and the ID3. And the ID3 is more sedan / e-Golf-esque as far as I understand. And that one is not going to be in North America. But the ID4, which is the SUV, sort of the larger vehicle, will be coming to the States. So that's what I can say.
And then one of the final questions here. I've heard that GM is talking about new BEVs with their new skateboard design. Do you know anything about that?
I know just anecdotally what I've heard. I haven't done a lot of research on that because as far as I know, it wasn't coming to market in the next, very recent future, which is what I was looking at. I can say that having a skateboard design is really useful for like making it easy to just plop a different body style on. So I'm actually curious to see what they're doing with that. But no, I don't know actually a lot about that, but I will probably end up doing some Googling after this because I am interested. So thanks,
Great.
guys.
Thank you.
Yay.
All right. Next up, Tim, you're on mute.
Yeah. So next up is Will Berry, Manager for Social Responsibility of Electrify America. Take it away, Will.
Just need 1 second to get my PowerPoint up here. Thanks, everybody. Awesome. Tim, thank you very much for that introduction. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Let's double check. Looks like everybody can, so that's good. But again, thanks for inviting me to speak today. I'm the Social Responsibility Manager at Electrify America, but folks in Sacramento know me well from the work that I've done to help develop the Green City program in Sacramento. Just as a historical note, back in 2017, Electrify America looked across the state of California and did city evaluations to try to determine who would be their green city and get the investment that was associated with that. And through a pretty extensive search, we landed on the city of Sacramento and really more broadly the Sacramento region to bring over $40 million worth of investment in electric vehicles and electric vehicle technology to the region to really try to jumpstart the adoption and increase access for electric vehicles and electric vehicle technology. So the two things that I wanted to focus on tonight were the second two bars that you see to the right-hand side of the screen, which are the charging infrastructure and the zero emission vehicle bus and shuttle programs that we're developing. I think that these are the ones that would probably be most salient to the group. So with that, I want to move on to talk about DC fast charge infrastructure. So with our investment, one of the things that we wanted to do is try to help solve the chicken or an egg situation that exists with folks not sure they want to buy electric vehicles unless they make sure that the infrastructure is there. But then companies may not want to invest in putting the infrastructure there if the cars aren't there to begin with. So we're delighted to be able to bring forward 13 DC fast charge stations in the Sacramento region, with 7 of those stations being within Sacramento proper, and then 6 more in the outlying areas. In terms of the station that's got the closest proximity to the city of Davis, that one would be at River Point Marketplace, which is on the 700 block of IKEA Court in West Sacramento. So the closest one to those folks in Davis would be there. And again, that one's at a marketplace. That was part and parcel of our decision-making in terms of placement for the electric vehicle stations that we have. We had heard loud and clear from a lot of surveys that we had done that EV owners were looking for amenities to be associated with the places where they can charge. Would they take charging out in the middle of nowhere? Absolutely, and a lot of folks got kind of used to that. But what we heard was that people really were looking for a opportunity to use a bathroom, to get a cup of coffee, maybe get a Wi-Fi signal. And so that was one of the more important elements in our placement strategy. And what we've done, whether it's in California, where we have over 100 stations in California, we just announced that in February, or nationwide, where we have hundreds and hundreds of stations. One of the things that we're looking for are the amenities that make people give something for folks to do while their vehicle is charging. So we were able to make partnerships with Target, Walmart, in Sacramento, for those folks that are familiar with the cannery. Those are all the types of places that we like to have our stations that are going to be well lit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you wanted to find more information about our stations themselves, definitely please go to our website at electrifyamerica.com, or we've also got a pretty cool app that you see on the right-hand side of your screen. In terms of the stations themselves, they range in speed from 50 kW to 150 kW. We actually have a station out in Rocklin, California, that's 350 kW. So we do have an ultra fast charging station in Rocklin, but the ones in the Sacramento region are really between 50 to 150. And with the 13 stations, the smallest amount of dispensers that we have would be 3 at any one station. And then our largest station, we have 8 dispensers, and that location is the Sacramento airport. At every one of our stations, we have lots and lots of CCS, but at every one of our stations, we always have at least one CHAdeMO plug for the electric vehicle, the Nissans out there and vehicles, Teslas maybe that want to pull in, and they can attach the Tesla adapter to CHAdeMO. So we want to make sure that whatever type of EV you have, we want to be able to charge it for you. So again, super excited about the stations. We've got 12 launched and ready to go. We've got one more on the way that should be in the weeks ahead launching. That one's at 1919 Fulton Avenue. So next I wanted to move on and talk about another one of the Green City pillars of our investment. Actually 2 different ones. One's very specifically because this bus service actually goes to Davis itself. So aside from the electric vehicle the EVSE equipment, in addition to that, we're also trying to roll out programs to increase people's access to electric vehicles. So working with some awesome partners, I've been able to develop, again, with the partners' help, develop the Causeway Connection bus service. And you see that pictured in the middle of your screen. It's the top of the 2 pictures. And then below that is a picture of a green power shuttle, which is going to be introduced into the Smart Ride program, which is directed by SAC-RT. And that's going to be for their micro shuttle program on Franklin Boulevard. So jumping back to the Causeway Connection program, that service is planned to be launched at the end of this month, and it's to connect the city of Davis to the city of Sacramento. And this would be the first direct link, at least by SAC-RT and YOLO, for these 2 communities. The bus itself that's going to be used for that is manufactured by Proterra, which is an American company which has manufacturing plants here in California, in a city called City of Industry, which is just east of LA. And then their other plant is in South Carolina. So while the service will connect Davis and Sacramento, really the 2, the barbells of it, where the weight is, will really be at the UC Davis campus and the UC Davis Medical Center in Sacramento itself. These buses are super cool. They drive, and even though it's a bus, it drives like an EV does, in the sense that it's got that great spring to its step. And then it also has that regenerative braking as well. So really cool. Can't wait to get it out there in the field. As I said to start with, none of this could be done without partners. And we had 3 great partners on this program: SAC-RT, YOLO Bus, and then UC Davis itself. The buses themselves are going to be split. 6 go to SAC-RT and 6 go to YOLO. And then UC Davis, again, showing tremendous leadership and great communication with the student body. So really excited about that. Please look for it at about a month's time or so. We should be launching. Next thing I wanted to talk about is the Franklin Boulevard Micro Shuttle. You can see that green power shuttle on the bottom. That's something that we're really excited about. SAC-RT has endeavored to break up a lot of their traditional bus routes. Instead of routes, they're breaking them up into bite-sized portions. So they're like zones. You can almost think of it like Uber Pool. So that's called their Smart Ride program. And the Franklin Boulevard area in Sacramento, which is about 80% or so low-income disadvantaged community. It hadn't had a bus service from SAC-RT or anybody else there for years and years until they introduced the Smart Ride service. It's going really, really well. And what's going to happen is we're going to replace the existing diesel-powered shuttles. We're going to replace those with these green power EV shuttles, and it's something that we're really excited about and looking forward to. So I know that I want to leave some time for my friend Tony Gonzalez, and I think that we're getting close to the end of time. So I know we wanted to have some Q&A, but at the same time, I also want to respect Tony's time and make sure that he has a chance to speak as well. So with that, I can either do questions or we can jump right to Tony. And Tony, sorry if I jumped into your time.
No, all good. Thank you, Will. And my apologies to everyone on the phone. This is Tony Gonzalez. I had technology problems, so I am calling in on my iPhone rather than being on video. I represent Electrify America here in Sacramento. I'm a lobbyist, represent a number of different organizations, including Electrify America. And I've been involved with the stakeholder outreach for Cycle 2, a lot of different issues for Electrify America, but one issue I wanted to bring to your attention and ask you to think about over the next few days and into next week is legislation that we, Electrify America, that is, and the Coalition for Clean Air are jointly co-sponsoring that has been introduced by Assembly Member Kevin McCarty, who represents downtown Sacramento. That legislation is AB 2168, which is pending in the Assembly Local Government Committee. Of course, the legislature is in recess right now. We'll find out when we come back, if we come back, all of that. But assuming we have something of a session left this year, and I think we will, but we'll see about that. This bill will be considered by the Assembly Local Government Committee. And what it essentially does is strengthen the existing statute that governs the permitting, the local government permitting review of EV charging stations. There is a unique statute, really the only one like it in the United States, AB 1236 by Assemblymember David Chu, enacted in 2015, that essentially requires every local government to do two things: adopt an ordinance that expedites the permitting of EV charging stations, and secondly, requires building officials to approve a permit application for an EV charging station unless, and I'm going to paraphrase here, unless there is an adverse impact to the public health or safety. And what is meant by that is non-compliance with the fire code, electrical code, building codes. In other words, if it's a standard, if it meets all of the health and safety criteria, the building official must approve it, the application, and it cannot be sent to zoning for planning for zoning review. It's a great statute, but GoBiz has found, and we have found in our experience in California over the last 2.5 years now of building these charging stations and going through permitting review, that most local governments in California are not in compliance with AB 1236. GoBiz, if you're familiar with that agency, it's part of the governor's office. You can actually Google this. This is really good information. If you just type in Google GoBiz ZEV streamlining map, just those 4 or 5 words, what will pop up once you click the link is actually a map that will show you which communities, cities, and counties throughout the state are deemed to be compliant by GoBiz, which has a ZEV infrastructure unit really on point to get this done, that is building the EV charging infrastructure. Compliance is terrible. And so although it's just beginning to improve because local governments are aware now that the governor's office is looking at this and we're pushing people to do better. And the Energy Commission is aware of this as well. In fact, I'll just digress for a moment and say that the Energy Commission has a funding program called Cal EVIP. They've basically said, the Energy Commission that is, that for the 2022 funding cycle for EV infrastructure projects, if you're not in compliance, that is, if a local government's not in compliance with AB 1236, according to GoBiz's map, they will not be eligible for Cal EVIP grants. So this is kind of a big deal. We've put legislation forward that says that once an application is submitted, if it is not acted upon within a certain time frame, the application will be deemed approved. And that time frame is 5 business days for review as to whether or not the application is complete, meaning it meets the checklist requirements, and another 15 business days for substantive review to ensure compliance with electrical, fire, building code, ADA compliance, all of that. If no action is taken, then it's deemed approved. And of course, we're not going to start building on the back of a deemed approved application, but we're hoping that having a timeline and statute by which these events must occur will ensure that they do occur. And just a final point as to, well, what's the problem, Tony? In our experience, statewide in California, from beginning to end, the average duration of time for permit review in California, at least for Electrify America, is 73 business days, so about roughly 5 months. Whereas nationally, it's closer to 40 days. So not quite double, but almost double what it takes in California versus every other state where we're building EV charging stations. And this in a state where it's by far the most EV friendly or EV accepting state, let's say, in the United States, and we really should be a leader by every stretch of the imagination. We have support from the environmental community, the OEMs, the auto dealers, a number of folks, and so we're working out some technical amendments with stakeholders. But essentially, once the legislature is back in business, we hope to take this bill up. It's an urgency bill, meaning once it is signed by the governor, it takes effect immediately. And we have the support of the Electric Auto Association, the Sacramento EV Association, and I'm going to be talking to other local EV associations over the next week or two. And I'd like to, if I can maybe send you, Sandra, a link to the bill. I should have done that so you can read the language. We would love to have your support as well. And I'll take any questions if you have any, or if not, I know we might be over time already, but I'm good to go.
Yeah, we actually are not really over time. The meeting was scheduled from 6 to 7:30. So
okay, good.
Anybody who has questions for Tony or for Will, please raise your hand.
Guy, I see you have your hand raised, so I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sandra. I just wanted to add one of the hats I wear is part of the National Electric Auto Association. And we've looked at this, and we've been concerned for a couple of years now that the biggest impediment to people buying EVs, of course, is the charging infrastructure. And we've been concerned that California is much slower at getting the charging infrastructure installed because of one of the big inhibitors is the time for permitting. So we've looked at least the initial wording on this bill. And so as part of the Electric Auto Association's position is that we do support it and would like to see that move ahead. So good work for you guys. And you guys, it's not just for Electrify America. This is an impact and something that's important for all the installers. We've heard that from electricians that are installing stations around the region that they're having trouble sometimes getting the permits. Though Sacramento's gotten better than other places, but across the country, across the state is still a challenge. So Tony, our hats off to you guys to try to push this through.
Thank you, Guy. You've been a great supporter, and you know, this is, you know, we've talked about this. You know, you guys know this, but it's the message that we're getting out to the Capitol, to local governments, and really nationally as well, is that the infrastructure piece is really crucial. I mean, I guess every piece is crucial in some way. You know, the OEMs have to deliver vehicles people want to buy. We need the incentives, but we need this infrastructure, and Electrify America, that's what we do. But, you know, in surveying the policy landscape, you know, we realize that, yeah, on paper, we have this great statute, but no one, virtually no one, let's say, is adhering to it. And there's no real mechanism to enforce compliance. Like, you really can't get the Attorney General to write a letter to the city of X and say, guys, you need to do this. You need to adopt the ordinance. You need to get with the program. And so, you know, in lieu of that, we borrowed a page from something called the California Permit Streamlining Act, as well as a telecom statute that deals with the installation of telecom equipment, I'll say, that actually establishes this precedent. And it's actually worked really well. The sky has not fallen on local governments after the enactment of AB 57, which deals with telecom. The sky will not fall on this as well. What we'll find is that compliance with AB 1236 will be fairly easy. There's still, you know, I think the important thing about this legislation that's pending now is that it does not change the standards by which these applications will be reviewed. Health, safety, absolutely first. We want to make sure, you know, that the installations are safe from an environmental and human safety perspective. And none of that changes. What will change is the timeline by which this review gets done. And, you know, and not to digress too much into this, but if the building official comes back to us and says, time out, guys, we see a problem, that's what we want. We want the building official to say, guys, you need to address these 3 issues. When we do that, or when that happens, we'll respond, and that shot clock, so to speak, stops during that period of time, and then we can get right to it, as opposed to waiting 3, 4, 5 months for a substantive response beyond the initial acknowledgement of receipt of the application. And I mean, I've got horror stories. We're not going to go into them. I would say the horror stories are probably more concentrated in Southern California than in Northern California, but there's really no systemic, you know, coastal, inland, you know, north, south. I mean, I would say that if there's there's probably no single correlating factor, but I would say that we see more of these problems, I would say, generally in Southern than in Northern California. But that's, you know, we've had a number of problems in the Bay Area as well. Not so much in Sacramento. I mean, Sacramento has been absolutely fantastic. The city has, you know, really embraced, the region has embraced EVs, and we're not that far off from the state really accelerating the curve of ZEV adoption. But the infrastructure piece is really crucial, and this bill, we think, will help that happen.
So we have another question from Paul. If you'd like to go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks, Sandra. This is Paul Imhoff. Tony, well, I think this message is probably for for Will. Will was talking about this, but I want to give you a story, my story about charging. And a little background on me. I've had a 2017 Chevy Bolt for years. I just turned it in. I had a great experience with it. And I now drive a Tesla Model 3. It's a 2018. So at one point I had both vehicles and enjoy them both. I mean, people ask me, which one do you prefer? And there's one thing that makes it a very clear thing, and that's the infrastructure. And so on an experience I had with my Chevy Bolt, I want to outline why this is so important that Electrify America does a couple key things in helping current and future EV drivers. So as I drove to Monterey, California, my Bolt EV has a range about 230 miles, 230 with some change. And I had to do a little bit of a hypermiling to get there. Once I got there, I had to figure out how to charge there in Monterey, which is a feat unto itself. I was going to spend the night at a friend's house. Unfortunately, their connections and their power didn't allow me to do that. So on the way back, I had to charge not with Electrify America, but with some of the other charging infrastructure that was out there. And this is where I learned some very valuable lessons. One, the places that I would charge on the way back were either one or two stations, Chatamo / CCS, and obviously the Bolt takes a CCS. And I would find out that one of the stations were either in use or broken or something like that, and then how to pay. And so the two things that I would hope that Electrify America kind of works with, and I'm sure you've heard this before, and that's managing that experience, the experience of the patron who's out there charging their car, to know before they arrive that station that they're going to has, usable, EV chargers that work, that aren't in repair, which is, having a repair, if you have something that's going to be in repair, to have it noted in some way on the application, etc. So that's kind of the first thing, managing that experience. What is Electrify America doing to manage the personal experience? And number two, the second question is, for third party, for a single type of one pay tool, what type of things does Electrify America do with regard to having, a single pay use, or a tool either on your application to pay not just with Electrify America, but to other things? Could you answer those two questions for me? I'm glad to repeat them if you need. It was a little long.
Will, you're off mute if you want to answer.
Great. And Sandra, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Paul, thanks for your questions. And I also love the Chevy Bolt. I think that is a great car at a good price point, and I think that price point is going to come down as well. So to try to answer the first portion of your question about managing the charging experience, we do recognize at Electrify America that it's very important. We've again done studies to make sure that we are knowledgeable about what people want. And a ton of our staff members are EV owners, or at least EV borrowers and drivers themselves. So we get it. We want to go through the same experiences that everybody else does. So as I touched on before, some of the things that are really important for the place aspect of it is, the number one thing is safety and security. So folks really, really want things well lit. Maybe folks have had some experiences, especially with L2 charging, where the charging location itself is behind the grocery store by the trash cans in a very poorly lit area. I know I've had that experience where it was hard enough to even find the L2 charger to begin with, and then in addition to that, then you're basically hanging out with the garbage. We don't want that type of experience. We want to make sure that people have the ability to have a sense of security, but then also have at least something nearby where you could get yourself something to drink or use the restroom in a really good situation. Offer people the opportunity to do other things so they can multitask. So for example, the placements near Walmarts and Targets, if you wanted to also get a thing of milk and some butter and some bread, while your car is charging, with it being DC fast, you can obviously get a lot of charge into your car in a pretty short amount of time.
So Will, I guess to be more specific, the experience in that when you're arriving or before you arrive to the charging facility, that A, there's a place for you to charge, and B, that it's not, you know, in repair or in a state of repair. You know, if you're going a long distance, usually when you're doing, you know, something more than 50 kilowatts, you're going from point A to point B and passing through, and then to find something else nearby once your charge depleted is a very hard thing. So that pre-planning, route planning is really important in knowing that you have it. So I guess it's more about your applications to know that when you get there, it's good, and then you can confidently go to that location and charge.
Yeah, I referenced our app before. It came out last May. It's getting better all the time. And one of the things that the app shows is, as you plug in the particular station that you're interested in, it gives you the opportunity to see what stations are available. Now, what I can say is that we've gotten feedback. It's not going to show if a car is blocking that station. So, you know, you're getting iced out by some internal combustion engine. If it's not plugged in, it's not going to show. It's going to show that the spot is available. But that's, I don't think that that's certainly, I don't think it's a majority of the cases. And we also do tows and things like that sometimes for cars that are clearly not charging. So the answer is, if you use the app, that's going to give you the information in advance. It's going to be able to help you plan your routes. And I know how important that is, especially on long trips, especially, you know, if you're going from Sacramento region to Monterey, you need to make sure that you got that charging squared away. So that would be what I'd suggest to you in terms of the managing the experience piece. And then in terms of the second part of your question in regards to payment option, there's multiple options for Electrify America charging stations. You do have the ability to swipe your credit card and pay the rack rate. So that's available to you. You just go up, swipe, and go. We accept the major credit card brands. But in addition to that, if you wanted to sign up for the Electrify America Plus Pass plan, then you can actually manage your charging experience directly from your iPhone or Android. And that it's just super simple. So I did want to make you aware that if you did sign up for the Pass Plus, there is a $4 monthly charge on your credit card for that, but you can use that $4 for your charging. So as long as you go to a charging, or like as long as you charge for $4 worth every month, then you'll make that money back. But that also unlocks our best publicly available rate. So hopefully I got your questions answered.
Yep, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I did want to, I see that there was one question that was on the side here, and if it's okay, I just want to take a quick 30 seconds to answer it. And there was a question about where will the buses and the buses and the shuttles charge. So in addition to providing the investment for the Proterra buses to Sacramento Regional Transit and YOLO, and then the Green Power shuttles to Sacramento Regional Transit, in addition to what we call the rolling stock, we also provided charging equipment for them. So in the case of YOLO, we gave them 3 350 kW chargers, which are out at their yard in Woodland. And then for SAC-RT, same thing. We provided them 3 350 kW chargers, which are at their yard on 29th Street in Sacramento. And then in addition to that, we also gave them 2 150 kW chargers to satisfy the charging for the shuttles. So I saw that question. I just wanted to answer it, especially because I didn't get to it when I was going through my slides. So thank you. I will quiet myself now.
Great. We have another question from Chris Granger. If you want to go ahead and talk, Chris.
Okay. So I actually have 2 questions. One has to do with what Electrify America is doing with low and moderate income households, especially related to charging in multifamily housing. And then the second question has to do with workplace charging. So in Davis, we have over 10,000 people commuting out of Davis every day, and most of those are going to the Sacramento region. So what kinds of work are you doing with large employers, especially in the Sacramento region, to enhance workplace charging? And how can commuters advocate for their employers working with you?
Got it. Well, I guess I'll answer the very last part of that question first, which is that if anybody has any ideas or questions or whatever that they wanted to submit, they can go to the Electrify America website, where we have a submission drop-down menu. So you can go there and you can leave us a comment on our website. So if you were really interested in workplace charging, you could talk with us about what you're interested in. So with workplace charging, we know that that is a very big deal, especially in California. We've actually gotten submissions about that particular question before. And it really, to start with, Electrify America is really actually still a very young company. While we spring from Volkswagen Group of America, which has got a long history, we're really only about 3 years old, and all of the way that our funding goes is in cycles. So for cycle one, which is now closed, everything was really just so focused on trying to get more infrastructure in the ground. And for me personally, to try to work with partners to establish the Green City program. Cycle two, which is what we're in right now, we're still really focused on the increasing the number of chargers within the state and nationwide. As we look to cycle three, I think that there's going to be more opportunities for us to develop closer relationships with companies to even further increase workplace charging. I stated before about the fact that we've got some big partners out there. A lot of that charging, a lot of those locations, or at least some of those locations, are relatively close to employers. Certainly, the folks that work at Target would have access to our charging. So there's more that we can do, but right now our focus has just been so much on getting the infrastructure out into locations statewide, and in California it goes from San Diego all the way to Northern California in terms of where our locations are. So there's more that we can do, but we're interested in hearing your ideas. So please do send them to us. And I think that you also had a question. It was about multi-unit dwellings. Is that am I remembering that correctly?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So with multi-unit dwellings, we are doing active work in California to establish level 2 charging at multi-unit dwellings, and that's clustered in different areas through the state. I'm happy to get you more information about that. We absolutely know that a concentration of multi-unit dwellings was like one of the best places that you can put infrastructure, in the sense that you got a concentration of people, probably a concentration of cars as well that go along with it. So the two go hand in hand. And I'll just go ahead and give you give out my email address now, so that if you had this question, you can email me and I can get you a more detailed answer about it. So my email address is will.berry@electrifyamerica.com. And you can see my name right there, so you can see how to spell it. And then it's at electrifyamerica.com.
Great, and we have another question from Joe. I have unmuted you. I think you can talk.
Thanks, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My question is also about amenities. Am I wrong to think that non-workplace, non-home charging is overwhelmingly people that are on road trips that are longer than the EV's range? So they're going to be interested in probably going out to eat and maybe Wi-Fi or entertainment during the time when they're done eating and they haven't finished charging. I'm surprised that there's discussion of people going shopping at Walmart or Target, or going grocery shopping rather than being on a long road trip. So do you have data about what fraction of charging is not on a long road trip and they're interested in shopping rather than road trip activities. I'm just trying to imagine what here in Davis, when we decide where these chargers go outside of the home and the workplace, what exact amenities should we be focused on, and how should we imagine that fitting into the driver's trip?
Okay, I want to try to unpack the question a little bit, because there was some real good content in that. So just to make sure I understand, your question is how much of the charging is being done at, or how much of the infrastructure should be placed at places that are retail oriented versus, say, restaurant oriented?
Yeah, so lots of people charge at home, lots of people charge at work. For people that are not doing that, I guess my first part of my question is, am I wrong to think that they're on road trips that are longer in distance than the range of the car, or are people doing, smart road trips or small road trips and charging up in the middle? And for people that are on these road trips, are they interested in retail shopping, or are they only interested in restaurant food and short entertainment during the time when they're done eating, or there are other activities that I'm missing that you have data on people wanting to take part in as part of an EV trip?
Yeah, in the material that I've been that's been made available to me, I don't think we got into that sort of granularity between the the different types of trips between folks who would maybe want to use retail versus restaurants, but certainly those stations that have good proximity to highways would have a tendency to be those stations where people would be taking longer road trips, right? I mean, it would be much more likely for you to go right off the highway to charge than you would to deep into a city center to charge if you're on a road trip. So I think one of the number one things about folks who are on road trips is bathrooms. Folks are really, really interested in making sure that they get a bathroom break. And so whether that's at a Love's chain where you can grab a cup of coffee and use the bathroom, or a full-fledged restaurant, I think just as long as they can go, that is what they're really looking for. Beyond that, I think that a lot of the other primary need for folks is that safety element that I had mentioned before. So they're really looking for it to be well lit. And when those two things are satisfied, whether it's the retail piece or the restaurant piece, while incredibly important, because usually as long as those first two pieces are satisfied, that goes a long way towards making that overall charging experience a better one for the consumer.
Great, go ahead, Guy. You have a comment?
Yes, I think that was a really good question that was raised, but there's an aspect of DC fast charging that is, there's a whole community that needs the DC fast charging besides us homeowners that charge mostly at home or on the road trips. It's one of the three vectors that we use to try to provide charging for people that live in apartment complexes, the multi-unit dwellings, condos, etc., where they don't have that ability to charge at home. Some of them can charge at work, but some of them, for us to get nearly half of the population, at least in our region, are homes that do not have access to be able to do charging. No electrical outlets, either an older home or an apartment. So we need to provide some charging capability to engage that half of our population. And that's where the important work done by folks like Electrify America comes in with the fast charging. So just to augment your question there, and that's it.
Thank you. And I think we're going to hold everything there for the evening. We're at 7:30, so we're at about time.
Sounds good. I just would like to thank everybody for participating. I think by my glances at the participant icon, we were up to about 44, 45 at some point during the meeting. That's fantastic. Hope everybody stays safe and has a pleasant rest of their evening and pleasant week.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.